Michael, what are they talking about? Come on, this doesn't make any sense at all. Metal Gear Solid 1 would be too hard to remake, Konami says. Sam Sepul over at Insider Gaming. That's a new one over there at Insider Gaming, by the way. Konami producers have revealed that Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater was easier to remake than Metal Gear Solid 1 and 2. In a new interview with Famitsu, game producer Noriaki Okamura and creative producer Yuji Korikato explained why it would be harder to remake Metal Gear Solid 1 and 2 than Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater. Okamura stated that to remake those two games, the developers must make some parts from scratch, including level design. With the remake of Metal Gear Solid 3, the developers only needed to create a few new parts. Okamura added that they first want players to play the Metal Gear Solid Delta remake, get feedback, and move forward accordingly. Also, only a small number of present staff members were involved in developing Metal Gear Solid 1 and 2. Hence, they plan to create a path to preserve the Metal Gear Solid series for 10 or 50 years in the future before all those involved with the original titles leave. Yeah, Korikato further stated that releasing Metal Gear Solid 3 Remake on PC will increase the game's chances of being played for the next 10 to 20 years. And their goal is to achieve that. Very interesting little stance there, Michael. Now, granted, if you are a Metal Gear Solid fan, you actually know Delta is where it all starts. Metal Gear Solid 3 is like where the timeline of the franchise is where the game begins. How that receives feedback from players and from what we've seen so far, the reaction is over the moon. I'm hyped. It's funny because we just did our game cast. I think it was this week, and we're talking about remasters and our hype level of remasters. Alton's all in on them. You and I a little bit hit or miss. Most times I don't care for a remaster, but I'll go check them out and then bounce out pretty quickly. I'm not one to go back to replay games, but dude, Metal Gear Solid 3 Delta is one of my all-time favorite games. So to go back, replay that in a modern setting, I think that's the biggest thing. How do you remake the game? Is it just a remaster, so it's got a new fresh skin, or is it a remake from the ground up? And with Delta, it's a remake from the ground up. So for me in a modern era right now, it'd be awesome to go in and play that experience again. I already obviously know the story, but at the same time, it'd be nice to kind of go down memory lane with a new perspective and see how that goes. With the hype level hits well, dude, they've got to remake one, regardless if they have to make new content for the game. Wouldn't you think?
Oh, maybe. I mean, I'm not a big Metal Gear Solid guy, so maybe my opinion's a little bit off base here, Drew. I know. I'm sorry. But I feel like if you've come out and said, look, we basically have to make one or two somewhat from scratch, at that point, why not just make a new game, right? If you have to put that much work in, why not just go ahead and make a new game, right? Maybe you get someone like me, who's kind of seen the franchise from the outside. A remake's not going to bring me in, but a new game, I'll be like, all right, maybe I'll go check that out. So that's the only one thing where I'm like, if you have to make some of it from scratch already, including designing new levels at this point, or redesigning the same old level, why not just come in, make a new game, especially if Metal Gear Solid Delta pops off. Their timelines, though, are really funny. 10 to 50 years, that is a massive range of like, hey, yeah, there's guys who worked on one who will still be here in 50 years. I'm like, really? You think they're going to be there that long? So that part kind of got me. But yeah, no, in my opinion, again, I'm not a Metal Gear Solid guy, so maybe my opinion's kind of out there. If you already have to do a bunch of new creative work for 1 and 2, I'd say just make a new game, especially if Delta Snake Eater pops off.
So here's my thought. If it pops off, I think they're going to make 1 and 2 all over from the ground up, because they have to rebuild the trust and the fan base in Metal Gear right now, because obviously Kojima left. Kojima has Kojima Productions, Death Stranding 2, a horror game, some stealth game that they promised to do with PlayStation. So we're going to get more content from him, but not in the Metal Gear franchise. Can they make Metal Gear without Kojima? That's everybody's biggest question, right? Can they pull that off? So they have to... Delta's a testing ground. I don't think they go from Delta to a brand new experience. They tried it when Kojima left. It's called Survive, and it was a disaster. That game did not survive at all. It died real fast. Man, it was weird. It was so weird. Yeah, but they banked on the name, and it didn't pay off. lessons learned, I'm sure. This is why we're getting Delta. This is why we're getting the Volume Collection 1 and 2, right? So they're trying to rebuild that fan base. Maybe you are onto something, though. Maybe once coming into Delta, go, hey, this is what we're doing. Now look towards the future. But, man, they have a... If I'm over at Konami, this is what I'm doing. I'm making Delta. And then I'm going to go 1, 2, 4, 5. And then by all those leading into production, development, fan base, fandom, the love and care, not only to pull back in old players from the Metal Gear franchise, but then new ones as well. That way they already now, okay, they've redone the whole franchise. We trust them now to know what they're going to do when it comes to the next iteration on Metal Gear Solid. Let's go. That's a long roadmap, though.
Yeah,
like that's a 10
to 20 years, like they said.
Right? So will that actually happen? I don't know, but I think there is a huge opportunity to pull these games back in a new light, in a new way. It's just only a matter of time if it's actually going to happen.